We also recognize that the ancestors of the Muwekma Ohlone constructed and maintained the 3 Bay Area missions. Our campus extends to surrounding areas that once held a traditional roundhouse called a tupentak. It was located at the historic Lope Ningo Land Grant Rancho Pozolmi y Positas de las Animas, or Little Wells of Souls, and also Marcelo, Pio, and Cristobal's Land Grant Rancho Ulistac. These were places of celebration and religious ceremonies. Nearby ancestral heritage shell mounds also have historical significance. They served as the tribe's traditional cemetery sites and territorial monuments. San Jose State University also desires to honor the military service of the Muwekma men and women who have honorably served overseas during World War I, World War II, Korea, Vietnam, Desert Storm, Iraq, and who are still serving in the United States Armed Forces today.
All right, very good. And once again, welcome. Thank you to all of our students, parents, family members, and supporters who are joining us today for our SJSU Adapt Student and Parent Town Hall. Just a few housekeeping items before we get started here with our first speaker. Following we'll have several guest speakers to provide critical information about the upcoming semester. And then we will also be having a pretty significant Q&A session. So we will be trying to answer questions live today. Feel free to use the Q&A feature. You'll find that on your Zoom settings on the toolbar. So please use that to post your questions. We'll be receiving those and trying to answer them in the order in which they come in. Please know that we will get to as many questions as possible today, but we do have about 90 minutes for this session, and we won't be able to necessarily get to all of your questions live. We will do the best we can. If we do not get to your question for some reason today, those questions will be answered through the Health Advisory website. And you'll see a link to that here periodically in the chat today and also at the end of the presentation. So please keep that in mind. Again, if we don't get to all your questions, we do apologize for that, but we're limited on time, and we will answer your questions through the Health Advisory website. We will also be recording today's event. So if you are not able to attend the full portion of the event today, you can go back and view the recording again on the Health Advisory website. Okay, with that, I would like to get started with our first speaker, Dr. Vincent Del Casino. He's our Provost and Senior Vice President for Academic Affairs. So I want to invite Vin to the virtual stage.
Thanks so much, Greg. Thanks, Greg. It's great to be here, and appreciate the opportunity to connect with our students and their parents. You know, as we've been spending a lot of time as a campus, as a leadership team, thinking through the best ways to manage the ongoing COVID situation and the pandemic that's in front of us. And within that context, what we've done is created a suite of classes that are really designed around the pedagogical needs of the students. So we want to be able to deliver curriculum where it really needs to be face-to-face, and we're delivering curriculum where it really needs to be hybrid, which is a blend, and where we can, we're delivering online curriculum. It's about 40% of the fall classes will be face-to-face, about another 15% are hybrid, and the rest will remain fully online. So many students have a mixed schedule in their mixed types of modalities in their schedule this year. We're putting in Canvas for parents who don't know, that's our learning management system for new students. That's where you're going to go to see all your classes every day. And we're going to keep updates there on the various rules and regulations and so forth, so that you really know how to interact in classes. Just so everyone knows, and especially for new students and perhaps new parents, we taught face-to-face last year, a very small percentage of our classes, but we've maintained face-to-face classes throughout the pandemic, and particularly in areas that had high needs like lab courses in the arts, in music, and other areas. So we have a lot of background and expertise on this and really how to protect everyone. We're developing a series of frequently asked questions, answers to those questions on issues of conduct and outbreak containment. We have an outstanding team, and we'll talk more about that today, and that might impact a classroom and so forth, and we will talk more about some of that. The other big thing is we are really looking this at a week by week basis. Santa Clara County has a very high vaccination rate. We are now mandating verification as well as requiring masks indoors. So we're going to be assessing every week where we are. I know there are a lot of questions with what would trigger going back to fully online and so forth. And we will be evaluating the data and the numbers and so forth and looking at what's going on the campus as we kind of progress, making sure that everyone can continue to get their education and have as high quality an experience as possible. So I'll stop there for now. I know there's a lot more questions, and I'm sure I'll come back and with some of my colleagues to try to answer some of those questions and address where we're going next.
Wonderful. Thank you, Vin. And there's certainly some questions rolling in about classroom, status and schedule of classes and so forth. And we will certainly get to those momentarily. But next, I'd like to invite to the virtual stage Mai Cantos. She is our Executive Director for the Student Wellness Center. And Mai, welcome. A topic that's top of mind for a lot of our students and parents and family members is around the vaccination policy. So I'd like to invite you to come on and talk a little bit about vaccination policy and how we're managing that process.
Thank you, Greg. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mai Cantos. I have a quick few updates so that we can really spend more time in the Q&A session, but related to our vaccination policy. Earlier, you may have seen some dates really as a nudge to try to get our vaccination self-verifications in sooner than later. And then in the last week or so, policy is now aligned with the state, the CSU, to submit self-certification form and proof of vaccination by September 30th. And so these two slides really are showing what the two steps are. To date, we actually have about 60% of our population having submitted this self-certification form, but not everybody has yet gotten to the next step. So this is the first step where you certify your vaccination status. And the next slide shows what the secure portal looks like. The Student Health Center Patient Portal is our electronic health record. And so it is HIPAA compliant and secure. The thing I wanted to point out here is you would have to upload both your medical and vaccine verification in this area. There is some confusion. I want to be clear that the vaccination verification process is completely separate from the standard regular immunization process that is ongoing. It happens as you are a new student, but they're kept in the same secure space. So you may see two different things. The immunizations you have until the, throughout the fall. Please continue to turn them in. You will not be prevented from accessing your classes for those regular immunizations. And for our COVID vaccination policy, you have up until September 30th to submit and attest. Testing, however, for those that are unvaccinated, we know will begin the week of August 23rd, and we will have this regular cadence to ensure that we can identify positive cases and move into contact tracing and case management containment to prevent the spread of COVID on our campus. And so that's it for now. I'm going to hand it back to Greg. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Mai. Appreciate the information. And it's certainly been a fluctuating process all summer. And I just want to give kudos to you and your team for managing a pretty large and overwhelming process. I believe there's also a dedicated website as well as an email address that if folks have specific questions about their status, they can go there. So perhaps later we can put that in the chat for the team working on the back end here. Thank you for your support. You might want to wait until the end of our presentation until we get through the Q&A to send your requests in, because I imagine your questions might be answered in this event today. But thanks again, in my mind, we really appreciate it. So next, I'd like to invite to the virtual stage Patrick Day. He is our Vice President for Student Affairs, and we'll open it up, Patrick, for you to give folks a sense of repopulation of our campus and what that might look like in the next few days.
Absolutely. First of all, I want to say thank you to everybody for being here. I know this is a different kind of time. I feel like we were saying some of this last year. It's unsettling in some ways, unpredictable. And we recognize that and are doing our best to be responsive to that. And I want to start there because what I want to communicate to people is that as much as we are having these events and sharing information, we're also listening. This is something for those of you who were with us last year. We continue to say that we are absolutely listening and paying attention to the feedback that we're getting or recommendations. I think this is a time where anyone who is saying they know it all probably doesn't. And so we appreciate the feedback that we've gotten from lots of people and really do pay attention to it. So I want to start off and make sure that people know that. I certainly want to share that as we saw last year, the majority of our students are really trying to be responsible and responsive as we all try and figure out the best way to address this, whether we're talking about compliance with vaccination policies or all mask wearing. We're really seeing students do that. You know, the great part about last year is that we had, generally speaking, a successful year, despite what was an unpredicted reality that we lived with. And so we're really looking forward to that. And I'm believing that our students are going to do that again. I want to take a moment to acknowledge that our sophomore class, that group of students that came here last year and did not have a traditional first year. I know some of you are out there, and I just want to express my appreciation to you for navigating that. And we certainly recognize that in some ways, this will be a first year for you. And we're trying to do some things to really acknowledge that. For those of you who are new, thank you for participating in the orientation process, and we're welcoming you into this community as Spartans. As we said last year, this is a different kind of year, but we will still move together through it as Spartans and really try and be responsive to one another in community so that we can be successful. I also want to acknowledge in this space with a lot of parents, our Family Advisory Board, which is a wonderful group of parents who we spend a lot of time with, who care deeply, obviously, about the experience of their student, but really the experience of all students. They have provided tremendous feedback for those of us who are administrators and for faculty. And so I want to acknowledge that group, and I want to encourage all of you who are parents to really get involved with the Family Advisory Board as well as the parent portal. I know we're going to post that information later, but I definitely want to encourage that for families. We have 3,500 faculty and staff who are working very hard, and a lot of even student staff who have been committed to really trying to make sure that we are safe as we return to campus. And that means a lot of things that we've been working on and a lot of things that are changing. So one of the things that you saw last year, and one of the things that you're likely going to continue to see is flexibility as much as we can create flexibility, but also a willingness to shift and to change. A number of the questions that I've seen that have come in have been about, are we willing to shift and change if conditions do in fact become different? And the answer to that is yes. We've done it before. We're absolutely prepared to do it again. But we also want to make sure that we're responding to a large number of our students who have said that they do in fact want to have an in-person experience, a safe in-person experience, but an in-person experience nonetheless. And so we will create hybrid opportunities, we will create in-person opportunities, and we will create online opportunities where we can. This is challenging. Please bear in mind, we have 36,000 students. And so crafting things around everybody's individual situation is almost impossible. But we're trying to create something that is going to allow students to continue to move forward with their education, but certainly to do it safely. We have moving coming this weekend at designated times. So it's a very scripted and crafted process. And I want to especially acknowledge our housing staff and the students who are planning on living with us, those who lived with us last year, even in the midst of the pandemic. And I want to acknowledge all of those folks who are who have done the things that they need to do so that we can have a safe housing environment. As we move into this year, we're really looking forward to having an engaged campus, though it will likely be hybrid. So there'll be some things in person, some things online, and some things that are a little bit of both. We see this as being a very engaged year. We are going to have the programs that we have. We expect our student organizations to be active and engaging students and having events. They will be different, no question about it. There may be more things that are outdoors so that we can have the kind of safe environment that we need to, less things that are in smaller rooms or rooms that are packed out with people participating. So we're going to make those kinds of adjustments, and the event process will be shifted a little bit, but we will still have events on the campus. Our buildings will be open. The provost is going to talk later about our library, which will be open. SRAC will be open. The student union will be open. So these things, we are going to have these facilities open. And what I want people to understand is that buildings are, particularly buildings like SRAC, they're sort of a sliding scale. We have plans for sort of every stage, depending upon whether or not conditions change or the health orders that come from the county shift. We have a whole series of ways in which we shifted last year and moved throughout, and ways which we are prepared to do that. We got some questions about light rail and VTA. And obviously this has been an extraordinarily difficult year for the members of our community who are a part, specifically who work for VTA, and we continue to stand with them. And we are hoping that at some point soon we will have a return of VTA, and they're a partner, as they are for so many of you in this community. We're looking forward to their return. So again, I'll wrap up there because I want to make sure that we are able to get to some of the questions. But I do want to, I'll end by saying we are absolutely listening and learning, willing to adjust and change. And so I really appreciate those of you who have made incredibly thoughtful suggestions and asked us to consider various things. It is truly helpful, and truly we're paying attention to those things. But I think Mama gave you some indication. We are watching what the Santa Clara Health Department says, County Health Department. We are watching what the American College Health Association says, the Centers for Disease Control. These are the things that we are looking at. So when you wonder how we're making those decisions, those are some of the key guideposts for us. So let me stop there, Greg, so that we can move into some of the other pieces of our presentation.
Wonderful. Thank you, Patrick. Really appreciate those opening remarks. And certainly the constant for the campus faculty and staff and administration the past year has been change, and we've certainly adapted ourselves to the changing environment and needs of our students. So thank you for highlighting some of those key elements. Before we get to specific Q&A, I would like to next invite our AVP for Facilities and Operations, Tracy Fertilage, to the virtual stage. Patrick alluded to some of the changes we made on campus in terms of buildings and safety, our cleaning protocol, and Tracy and her team have been very hard at work for the past 2 years, really trying to put safety first for our community. And in fact, many of her team members, never worked virtually, didn't work virtually. They've been on campus this entire time, and we certainly appreciate their efforts. So Tracy, I just want to open up to you to share some comments about what that's been like for your team and what measures you put into place for the community.
Sure, Greg, and thanks for having me here today. And it's really nice to join this town hall and be able to share some information regarding what facilities development and operations has been doing to prepare the campus, and to do what we can and whatever we can to make the campus a safer place for everybody who will be here. And so the team has been very hard at work. We all left last March, but the facilities team has been here, as you alluded to, Greg, the entire time, including this past academic year. And we are still employing many of the safeguards that we put into place with the campus this past year, and I can get into that a little bit. But what we have done over the course of the summer is apply this lens of how do we take what we've done and all the things that we've learned about COVID, and how do we then adjust our plan for safety as well as for an increased campus population. And I think that that's been a lens that the entire campus administration and leadership team and many of the people that are down on the ground level planning programs and services for our students have taken is that we realize we're going to have more density, and we realize we have an ever-changing environment. So some of the things that we are currently doing and is getting up is a lot of new signage is going into place, giving people direction on what the rules or requirements are. You'll see a lot of face coverings required as you enter into a building. We also will have we call them Bowman stations just because that's the brand name of the station, but it's actually a standing unit that has hand sanitizer, face coverings, disposable face coverings, and gloves. Those will be placed at the primary entries for all buildings. That way, if somebody walks into a building and really wants to use the hand sanitizer, which we encourage, that opportunity will be there. And if they've forgotten a mask, one is right there. And so we're doing those types of actions as well. Our custodial services team has really taken a lot of action this year in terms of changing the way that they do business, also taking advantage of the fact that we did have a low population through the summer to really bring things up to a different level of cleanliness so that we can focus a lot of our efforts on disinfection and sanitation services. We have a quick strike team in our custodial arena. They have been trained in how to disinfect spaces and how to tackle that quickly. We work really closely with My, and I also have environmental health and safety in my area. We're dovetailed together so that if we have something we need to respond to, our strike team goes out and immediately can sanitize space. We have a way to lock that space off too until they're able to get there. So we are taking the cleanliness aspect of the campus to a very, very seriously, and we'll continue to do so. Take a lot of pride in that. Other things that we are doing include adjustments to our HVAC systems. Each building has a different type of HVAC system. We have gone through a comprehensive analysis over the course of the last year, and now we're making more adjustments for increased population within a building. But in general, what I can tell you is we've vastly increased the amount of outside air being circulated through a building. So what that does, typically when you have air coming into a building, your dampers are set in a way that allow air to be recirculated into that space, but maintain healthy oxygen levels within a building. What we're doing is saying we want more of that air to completely be new every time coming through. That allows us to push out whatever people have breathed out of the building and bring fresh air into the building. That's provides a safer environment given that COVID spreads through aerosols. The other thing that we've done is we've outfitted our buildings with MERV 13 filters, which has increased the filtration level. That's the recommended filtration level for HVAC systems with respect to COVID and decreasing the spread of COVID in our environment. So we have done all of that. And then in areas where we might have maybe not as good a circulation or some limitations, we're also have a criteria that we're using to deploy HEPA filtration machines. So those are just a few of the things that we're doing, Greg, to make a safe environment. And we're always learning and we're adjusting our plan as we go. So we're very dedicated to working to keep the campus community safe to the best of our ability.
Great. Thank you, Tracy. Really appreciate that. And Tracy has such a great way of taking a very scientific process and breaking it down so folks can understand what we've been doing. I know your team has been very deep in the weeds in figuring all that out, the ventilation system, the airflow, cleaning and so forth. And it is a very detailed process when you consider that, as Patrick said earlier, we have 36,000 students and several thousand more faculty and staff. It's, close to a 40,000 person community. It really operates like a small city. So Tracy and her team definitely have their work cut out for them, and have done just an outstanding job in responding to and anticipating some of the challenges that come with COVID. So we appreciate all those efforts. Okay, now we're going to shift into our Q&A portion. So just a couple reminders once again. I see we've got several questions in the Q&A box there, which is wonderful. Please keep them coming in. We're going to do our best to get to as many questions as we possibly can today. And if for some reason we don't get to your question, please don't take that personally. It's just time constrained, but we will post answers to those questions on the Health Advisory website as well after the event today. So I'd like to, and bear with me for just a moment, I'm going to go back to my Q&A document here so we can get some questions answered. So I'd like to first go back to our provost. Vin, if you wouldn't mind coming back to join us. As you can imagine, we got several questions in the chat here about classes and what to expect and what students can expect, given that we are just about a week away from the first day of the fall semester. So I'll just go through some of these here. The first question, Vin, is will international students be required to take an in-person class to maintain their enrollment this fall?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And it's a complicated question, like many things, because depending on when you start, so new international students are under a slightly different set of rules from students who have been here. So the best answer is actually to talk to International Student Services. They are a fantastic team, and they can really dig into your case a little bit and make sure that you understand exactly the rules. And I don't want to overstate it here and make too general a comment and then mislead somebody. So please check in and they'll get back to you right away.
Thank you. And I should point out here too that folks who may be viewing this recording, just keep in mind that everything that we share today is as of today, right? August 12th, 2021. And of course, you know, with things changing, they could be very different tomorrow. So just to keep that in mind for all these questions that we're going to answer today. So thank you for that, Vin. The next question is, how will students know about what to do on the first day of classes? So we know we have online classes, in person, and some hybrid. How will students know what to do on the first day of classes if their course is listed as a hybrid course?
Yeah, so thanks for that. I'd like to invite Vice Provost Thalia Anagnos onto the screen, because there's a couple of bigger picture questions tied to here. What does TBA mean? You know, there's some things in the course schedule. What does a face-to-face look like? So perhaps Thalia can address a couple of these and provide some context.
Yeah, thank you, Provost Del Casino. I would really encourage students to, number one, log into their Canvas website, because the Canvas will have the syllabi for each of the classes that you're enrolled in. But another really important resource is My SJSU. When you go into your student center, you'll find that your schedule is in the student center. And if you click on the weekly schedule, it'll lay out your schedule for you for the whole week. And you can see in looking at that daily schedule, which portions of the class are online and which portions are in person. And if it's in person, it'll have a room number, a building and a room number. And if it's online, it'll say online. And a number of people in that chat have asked about TBA. We have what we call asynchronous online classes. Those are classes sort of like a self-paced online class, and that's what TBA is. I would encourage you to go out to our Learn Anywhere website, and there is a set of FAQs there that explains the different modes of instruction here at San Jose State.
Wonderful. Thank you, Thalia. Appreciate that. And maybe you could both stay here for a moment. I think the next question goes a little bit deeper into that. So there's some questions among students around, do they have flexibility once they are in the courses that they're in, right, online, hybrid, or in person? Will there be opportunities for them to flex, and will professors offer options to those students should they request it?
Yeah, that is a really great question. I know it's a pressing one. What we have done is gone through the catalog of classes and really identified the courses that have those high demands for face-to-face already. So right now, those classes are in the modality that they're in, and they're meant to be in those modalities. We historically, students have illnesses and other types of things. Professors have makeup policies and strategies for getting information to students. We're going to use those. But it is very challenging to say everything is going to be in a high flex environment, and we're not able to deliver that well. So I think everyone just needs to work within their class and with their faculty member. We also have an accommodation center, right, for students. So if there's a real need, we have different mechanisms to support students when they might need an accommodation as well. And that's a slightly different issue, you know, if you're immunocompromised or something like that. So you need to be accessing the various resources that are available to you. And in which case also your academic advisor could be very helpful, because there could be a course that might be taught in a different modality that would meet similar requirements. And so you can double check there. But right now the schedule is the schedule that we have. And as Greg pointed out, it's a small city, mid-sized town here, and it's hard to move everything into, you know, always every modality all the time.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And certainly we've made several shifts over the last year based on what we learned, you know, the previous academic year, and shifting to online, and professors have engaged in some professional development to make that even more robust and a better experience for students online. So I would say we're in a much better position than we were last academic year in that regard. But as you point out, you know, at some point we have to make decisions about how each course is going to be offered so that faculty can adequately prepare for the upcoming semester.
Yeah, and to that point, you know, we've had over 1,400 faculty in the last 2 summers do various trainings on the different modalities and how to deliver them effectively and high quality. So that is really important. And I guess, you know, another key point is our faculty right now attestation on vaccination is 98%. Our staff is 96%. So everyone is taking incredibly seriously the safety requirements here. And while we don't have, for example, an outdoor mask requirement right now, I went outside. There were lots of events yesterday. I'm in my enclosed office right now, right? And people were wearing masks, almost everybody, even though it's not even a requirement outdoors. So everyone is in on this to take this very seriously and make sure our environment is incredibly safe in the context of this pandemic.
Wonderful. Thank you, Vin. All right, we'll give you a short break here and we'll move on to some other topical questions. I'd like to actually invite Mai back to the stage if you'd be willing to come back. Just a few specific questions, as you might imagine, around the vaccination process, attestation process, and so on. So we have someone who submitted a question. I already submitted my vaccination and immunization vaccination a couple weeks ago, but it hasn't been reviewed yet. Will I still be able to go to school in person?
Yes, thanks for that question. And the answer is yes. We have, you know, we would want you to adhere to safety protocols, wearing a mask, and then beginning August 23rd, we will begin our testing protocols for those that are not vaccinated or haven't been verified at that time. You will be receiving notices. We're in the process of identifying, finalizing that communication, and you'll be notified about that testing information. I also wanted to add, because I forgot to add, vaccination opportunities. We will have an on-campus Santa Clara County SJSU sponsored vaccination clinic on campus on Wednesday, August 25th from noon to 7. It's a drop-in clinic. They'll be offering Pfizer and Johnson & Johnson. And so if you haven't already done so, or you're waiting for your second or final dose, you can have the opportunity on campus. Otherwise, we've also included locations of mobile vaccination clinic that the county is offering throughout the county, and that the link is posted somewhere.
Wonderful, thank you, appreciate that. And if we could just continue with one more question for now. Could you just, there's a couple of questions about testing and so forth. So would you be willing to comment on the testing process and possibly the tracing process for COVID?
Yes, I'm happy to do that. You know, it's recommended that when we return to campus by the American College Health Association and the CDC, that we have those particularly that are not vaccinated, which would include those with a medical exemption or religious exemption, to be tested. So we'll have a re-entry testing protocol, and then a weekly cadence of testing after that. And the vendor we are using will be the PCR standard testing. It'll be a nasal swab. Results will be provided to the individuals directly, as well as we'll be able to know. So you'll get that notification, and if it's positive, you'll be contacted by a medical provider with instructions on what to do, if you're positive, and who to make sure you notify. The other way we also learn about positive cases is through a report a case. So there's a link on our website, a report a case link, to let us know if you've been exposed. That gets to us at the Wellness Center, and we do a quick triage. It notifies all the necessary individuals. So we work closely with Tracy's team and FDNO, with housing, to then quickly mobilize around what we might need to do in the event that this person thinks that they're positive. Follow up with our case managers who follow up on the case, as well as those that are might be in close contact with specific instructions. And so that's really how we do the contact tracing here on campus.
Wonderful, thank you. And Tracy, as well as Ben, alluded to this earlier, but we're following the county guidelines on masking. And so just to clarify, students will be expected to wear masks indoors, but we do not currently have an outdoor mask requirement. And Tracy mentioned that there will be PPE stations all throughout campus as well. Of course, it'd be wonderful students can remember to bring their masks with them when they come to campus, but there will also be PPE stations throughout campus as well. All right, we've had several questions in the realm of student affairs, student life type of questions. So I'd like to invite back Patrick Day, our Vice President for Student Affairs, for the next set of questions. Hi, Patrick, welcome back. So our first question here is, can you just comment on the various resources that we have for students on campus, whether it be counseling, tutoring, involvement opportunities? How do you anticipate students can engage with those types of resources in the coming semester?
Sure. I think there's going to be multiple ways. I mean, one of the things that we saw last year, even we were almost 100% virtual, is that we did not disconnect from students. So whether it was the amazing job that our counseling and psychological services staff did, our accessible education center that Ben alluded to earlier, these services are going to continue to be available, and the majority of them are going to be in person. And so students will still be able to walk into offices and engage and get the kind of assistance that they need. And so students should still be able to talk to an advisor, should expect to still be able to talk to an advisor, to still be able to access our student wellness center that MyMy is responsible for, is going to be open and available. We'll still be able to access services for general medicine kind of concerns, as well as counseling and psychological services. Both areas did not close, over the course of last year, as well as some of the other services I alluded to support student involvement and student engagement. Those offices are going to continue to be available to students, and we want students to have that kind of support. So we are really doing everything we can to deploy our staff and to have the campus community that we've had previously. Are we trying to pack 10,000 people in one place? Well, no, we're certainly not. We're trying to do it differently, but we are trying to have a different level of engagement on campus than we had in last year. So, and I think based on everything all the planning we've done, that is going to happen. I want to acknowledge one thing. I know that one person has highlighted the Delta variant. I want to say, let me just say this out loud. We're spending a lot of time looking at what the impact of the Delta variant is. This is part of the reason why we are focused, particularly on campus, on vaccination, trying to mitigate some of the unknowns, particularly around the Delta variant. And we recognize that the reality is this is likely not going to be the last variant, right? So we're going to live with this for a little while. And so we're trying to figure out how we do that effectively and have a safe community. And so to that person to answer the question, what it means is we are looking at our policies. We're looking every day as to whether or not some of our policies need to change. Will we need to pull back on some spaces that are open? All of those things are happening on a daily basis. So when we talk about being connected to the Public Health Department, the American College Health Association, the CDC, we are looking at that every day, and sometimes it's by hour, and people like my are plugged in such that they're getting notices when policies, when procedures change, and then we are talking as administration about how we may need to adjust around those things, sometimes on a daily basis. So I absolutely appreciate the question. And I want to say to that person, we certainly don't think that this year is the same as last year, but we are encouraged by what we did do last year, such that we can be prepared for this as much as possible this year. So I appreciate the question.
Yeah, thank you, Patrick. I know there was a series of questions about that, so thank you for addressing that here. The next couple of questions are housing related, so let's try to get those here in this block. Just starting with move-in day. Move-in days are just a couple days away, so perhaps you could comment on what students and families can expect over those days.
Sure. Well, last year we moved into a more curated process. Students, families are given a particular time, and part of that is so we can have a certain amount of distancing and allow safe operations of people being able to bring their things in, use elevators, and go up to rooms in ways that are safe, and just allow people, quite frankly, a level of comfort. Many people we know have not been in closer quarters, and so we want to make sure that we have that distance and that spacing such that families can do that move in safely. This is something that worked both for move in as well as when we had students moving out, to have that happen at particular blocks of time. So what I would say to families, please pay very close attention to your block of time, and make sure that you come during that time. And it's still move-in day. It's still one of the best days of the year. This is an incredibly exciting time, despite the challenges that we're finding ourselves in. And so, we're going to ask people, obviously there'll be places there to sign in, and there'll be conversations around, people being able to access the building and get their keys. Certainly pay attention to the torrent of communications that we have sent out regarding vaccination, regarding bill payment, regarding safety protocols in the building. Please read your email, and it's just going to be critical because all that information is out there and available. Again, let me emphasize this. We had a safe year last year, even when we didn't have a vaccine, and we were very mindful. And our students, when I say we, I don't just mean the staff, I mean our students were really mindful and thoughtful about how to navigate the space. This year is different, and so we have kept protocols in place. And we will adjust as necessary. I keep saying that because I want to make sure that people are hearing that. And so we will make the necessary adjustments if we need to around what is happening in housing. But it's still a very exciting time, and we're excited for families to come. We're very just thrilled about people choosing SJSU. And so we will see people on Saturday.
Wonderful, thank you. And yes, we are excited. This will be the first time for many of our faculty and staff to see, a group of students coming back to campus. So we're thrilled about that. And I'm signed up for the afternoon shift on Saturday. I'm excited to see our parents and our students moving in again. I know the campus community is excited as well. Just a couple more on housing, Patrick, if you're willing.
Sure.
There's a couple questions about apartment style living, such as our CBB buildings, several others. There's a question about what would the protocol be within that type of living environment among roommates in a shared space?
Yeah, and so so this is one of the times I'll go for a lifeline and ask maybe if Eric is with us, our executive director of University Housing Services, Sandra Daniels, who's our associate vice president responsible for that area. I'm going to ask them to, there's Eric right there, and ask them to join us to maybe talk more specifically, and maybe even to maybe talk about follow-up when we have a case. So I'll throw that to Eric.
Thank you. Hope everybody's doing well today. The protocols for apartments and actually housing in general, we will actually continue some of the protocols we had last year. And I think this particular question, individuals had a single room, and it was like a 3-bedroom single room. So it's like your family unit, right? And so if you're with your family unit, we hope, we're hoping you're staying safe. If you're inside in the public areas around university housing, we're asking you to mask. inside every public area. We are still socially distancing in study areas and lounges. We're asking students to do that. Computer labs, those type of things. We have cleaning crews. Our custodial services are cleaning 2 to 3 times a day, high touch areas. We also have PPEs for students. So if they forget a mask, we will issue masks, gloves, sanitizers. We have hand sanitizers everywhere. So we're asking students to be as safe as they possibly can. And we're doing some similar things that we did last year as far as a number of people in elevators, guest policy. We're asking this year that you only have guests that live within our community and no outside guests. So some of the rules and policies that you saw last year will continue this year. And if we can ease those restrictions, we will. We have cleaned, and we had all summer because most of our apartments were empty in the summer. And so we went through and did a thorough cleaning. So all apartments should be ready and to go for students coming in. We're working very closely with student health so that if there is a situation where somebody had tests and has COVID, we have quarantine and isolation spaces for those students. So we will move those students to other locations. So if that roommate tests positive, then we will take them and isolate those individuals and do all the other appropriate things with that. Again, working closely with student health. And then student health will assist us with the contact tracing and those type of things that are happening. So if students need anything from us, we'll be more than willing to assist them.
Yes, and I was just going to add, if students present symptoms, there's a separate protocol for that as well. So there might be a regular testing cadence that someone might be in, or if they present with symptoms, they'll go to the Student Wellness Center. There's a very specific process for symptomatic testing. If it results in a positive, as Eric said, we work very closely to then identify the roommates, which will then go into, if we're positive, there's a whole algorithm that we have to follow. That whole process, and depending on what that process is, it could be quarantine for all students, in which housing and student wellness coordinates also with the classes to let them know that they're in quarantine and we're not able to attend this week, until they're out of quarantine. So we're coordinated. We love working well with each other, and we do. And it's because we love the students that we work with, which are your students. So
I would also add any students that are in isolation or quarantine, we do work with our food provider to have meals that are delivered to them, any other additional cleaning or safety supplies they need to make sure that they are doing as well as possible, and that our RA team, our paraprofessional staff do check in with them and our case manager on a regular basis.
All right, thank you. And for this group, just a couple related questions that are in this section. Folks are curious how many students are going to be living with us on campus, and also what will food service look like for students living on campus?
Well, this year is going to look a little different than last year. We're at about 92% occupancy. That's about 3,300, 3,400 students that will be living on site. And so that's why we're taking even more precautions, because we do have that number. And food service will be open starting Saturday, and it's full service. Individuals will be able to also eat in the dining commons as well. And I think the student union is open, and so all of our dining and food facilities will be open and available for students starting on Saturday.
Thank you. Appreciate that. All right, we'll give this group a break for a moment, and I'd like to actually go back to Tracy Fertilage, if we could, for a moment, from facilities. Tracy, a few questions just about buildings and access on campus, but also if you could just clarify our mask requirement as well, the outdoor requirement.
Yeah, sure. So you did a great job, talking to everybody about and emphasizing everybody's wearing a mask indoors. And, when we go outdoors, we're following the guidelines from the county. And we recognize that we will have some people on our campus community who may not be fully vaccinated either between now and September 30th, or who may have one of the exemptions. Individuals who are not vaccinated on campus when they're outdoors will need to wear a mask if they can't maintain 6 feet of physical distancing from others. So that's the little small caveat there. The other thing to point out is that when anybody is in a shared vehicle, including like university shuttles and such, everybody's going to have to be masked up on those shuttles or in a shared vehicle when doing some type of university activity. Thanks for asking, Greg.
Yes, thank you. And then just some general questions here about, building access to the library, other buildings on campus. What can students expect?
Yeah, so your tower card is your pass to get into buildings. We recognize that the start of the semester can be really challenging for people to get used to using their card, receiving their card, and other such things. I think that there have been a number of communications that have gone out to students asking them to load up their picture, in the, I can't remember the name of the program, but to upload their picture so that tower cards can be produced and sent to them. If you haven't quite received yours yet, make sure your picture is uploaded so that we can produce it and get it to you. First couple of the weeks of the semester, we'll have a little more leniency around being able to get into buildings and move around, because we know that that's people getting used to rhythms and schedules and other such things. But after that, your tower card, your access to buildings. So academic buildings will be, student tower cards will work on those buildings for set hours. Off the top of my head, it's Monday through Friday from 7 a.m. till 10:30 p.m. and on Saturdays from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. And there is ability for a student to get access beyond those hours and just work with your professor or with other people, and we can work through that. But that's general access. Places like the library, the student union, and some of our other locations where we just have lots of people coming in and out of those buildings, those sliding glass doors will still be enabled. You won't need to use your tower card to enter those buildings, but they will only be open during the hours that building is open. And we'll, work with people to provide access in other arenas. Like as an example, many of our student clubs will use the Spartan Memorial Building or the Morris Daly Auditorium. And so we'll have a process for clubs to have a key card that gets them into those spaces as well. Very typical to the way campus has always operated in that respect.
It's very helpful. Thank you. If I could ask you to stay here for a moment for this next question, but I'd also like to invite our provost, Vin Del Casino, back to the virtual stage as well. I'm not sure who wants to answer this question, so I'll keep you both here for a moment. But students, may have a hybrid schedule where they have some in-person classes as well as online, and some students may choose to stay on campus and log into their online class. So can you just comment on Wi-Fi and what that experience might be like for students?
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in on this real quick. I mean, a couple of things that are happening. We're upgrading the Wi-Fi in the library. We've got special spaces in the library that are going to be identified and focused on students so that they can do their work. We're increasing the Wi-Fi access in the outdoor spaces, the campus as well. So that's good. The other thing we've done, and it's on the Learn Anywhere website, and our vice provost put a link in earlier, is there's going to be a series of classrooms that we've pre-designated for students to sit in to do work if they have, let's say, a face-to-face class in the morning and then some online work and then another face-to-face class. So we're creating a lot of different spaces for students to be able to manage this more hybrid overall schedule that they'll have this year.
Wonderful, thank you. And obviously we have several thousand students that may be in that situation and commuting to campus, so they may want to make the most of their time on campus and engage in that type of mixed use and logging onto online classes. So thank you for that. Tracy, we'll let you off the hook for now. I'll call you back up if there are other questions, unless you'd like to comment.
Just one real quick Well, real quick comment. We're also improving all of our outdoor wireless through a project as well. And that project is rolling right on schedule. So students should have a much more robust outdoor wireless experience in addition to at the library.
I envision a lot of students on Tower Lawn engaging in their online classes. So, thank you. Vin, if you could stay for the next couple of questions here. Could you comment about engineering labs or labs in general, or classes where students traditionally would come to campus for a particular class? What will that experience be like if courses are listed as online?
Well, that's a great question. And first off, Greg, you're doing a great job, moderating here. I just want you to say you're so many questions, and these are really important topics. And I really appreciate that we're doing this and you're organizing this. The question of, so we did a lot of labs online last year, and we're able to translate the pedagogy appropriately. We even had some in engineering create remote access to labs where students could actually manipulate physical objects virtually. So there's a lot of things that have been done. What we tried to do for this fall is in our STEM fields with labs, and actually in our arts, and this really applies to art and music and other areas as well, and design even. It's not just in the STEM labs. The faculty and the chairs and everybody and the deans looked at the curriculum and said, what absolutely still has to be face-to-face and what can we continue to do virtually? And they've increased the number of programs and classes that are face-to-face, while taking advantage of the fact that we did massive amounts of training and development and other things to continue to deliver labs that make sense in the virtual environment. So it's really been a very thoughtful exercise on a part of the faculty and the staff and the others who contribute to making that a really high quality set of learning experiences.
Thank you. Yes, we've heard some of that positive feedback from students and appreciating that adaptability for those types of courses. And somewhat of a related topic, and I'll just open it up for general comments, but could you talk about research and creative activities, students who are engaging that? Many of our graduate students obviously engage in that, but many of our undergrads as well. Could you comment on that too?
Yeah, I think it'd be great to have our Dean of the Graduate College join us for this, Mark DeLarco. It's a big picture. It's a critical part of the learning experience. And one of the unique things about being at San Jose State is the opportunity to engage in research. But maybe, Mark, you could talk a little bit about the graduate student research experience and undergrad research more generally, as someone from the College of Science who's done a lot of that work himself.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Vin. So there are many opportunities for in-person research that will be available in the fall. And our Vice President of Research and Innovation, Mohammed Abu Salem, has done a wonderful job of developing processes whereby research labs can submit protocols to assure that the students who are doing those research opportunities are safe within that space. And we are expecting to have quite a robust set of in-person research experiences in the coming fall.
Yeah, and in addition to that, I just want to say too, the fieldwork-based research will also be continuing. We now have protocols for being able to move people, because we have people who do geology and other types of things, environmental science, and it's outdoor activity, but you still have to get there, and you have to get there safely. So they've done a fabulous job in developing protocols around that as well.
Well, thank you both for answering that. Shifting a little bit here, Ben, one more question in this section. Could you just comment on the academic support services that are going to be provided to students, particularly students that have a class schedule that's fully online?
Yeah, one of the fabulous things that, probably shocking for me to say fabulous and pandemic in the same sentence, but here's what we learned. We learned that we need to be able to meet students where they are. And that's in all areas of their experience. It's not just in the classroom. So our writing center, tutoring programs, academic advising, a lot of the programming in the student affairs area, Greg, you oversee yourself, right? They've created really dynamic learning opportunities in those spaces to support online students. We're also this year really deepening our academic advising support across the university. So first year students in particular, their parents whose students are new this year, you're going to see a real uptick in that level of support. And that's one of the key things, because people are going to have to still navigate the campus and all its rules and regulations and so forth. But we really learned, and I think delivered, amazingly high quality support programs over the last 18 months. And we're going to continue to leverage those, because there will be students who are in person or like, oh, wow, online tutoring for writing, that's really helpful for me, because I don't necessarily have to come to campus for that. So there's a real advantage that's been developed out of that, I think. For the flip side, that online student can also access the face-to-face services if they want them and need them.
Yeah, absolutely. We've seen that in several of our advising centers, our EOP program. We actually saw the appointments raised in terms of percentage of showing up to those appointments, because it's so much easier sometimes to log in and be with your advisor virtually. So absolutely, I think it's actually turned into a positive for many of our students to access those services in that way. I would just add too, it depends on the service and the department you're trying to reach. So just be very careful to review the website information for that department. We've also instituted a live chat feature on many of our websites, and so that can also be a helpful service to students as well. All right, Ben, thank you. We're going to move on next. I may come back to you if there's remaining time here. I want to go back to Patrick Day, our Vice President for Student Affairs. Patrick, if you could join us back on the virtual stage here. So there's a few related questions around COVID policies. And so I'll just try to summarize those in this question. If students, for some reason, are in violation of COVID policies, whether that be vaccination, testing protocol, masking, et cetera, what can students expect to happen?
Right. No, this is a good question. We get this question. I'm going to start off, I'm going to say a couple of things. One, let me say again, what we learned from students last year is they actually want to be safe. And they demonstrated that, again, at a time when we had much less information than we do right now. And so I want to start off this question, not from the deficit, but be really clear on what we've already seen, okay, from our students. That being said, whether it's about what we've learned, whether it's about the Delta variant, we're taking this very seriously. We have a policy for a reason. And this doesn't work unless we act in community. And so we're going to be addressing this very seriously. So now, let me be clear. The goal of our policies is not to kick people out of school. Quite the contrary. Our whole goal is to have continuity and make sure students are safe and make sure that our entire community is safe. So let's all get on the same page around what the starting point is, whether or not we agree or disagree with all of the elements. But that's the starting point. We want to have a successful year like we did last year. Certainly, but let me get down to some additional specifics. As we think about, I'll put it in some categories. So category one is just non-provision, students who have not provided any information. Those classes, their classes and access to buildings will be dropped on October 1st. So I want to be very clear. If we have a student that's just not responding to the bevy of emails and the communications asking them to submit information, then that student will be dropped. I'd say category two is testing non-compliance. So someone who is in a testing protocol, trying to help them either get vaccinated or help them navigate whatever their status is. And if we have vaccination non-compliance, they will receive a warning saying, hey, we need you to follow this vaccination plan. So MyMy's area will work with our student conduct area and they'll get a warning about that. But if we see continued non-compliance, again, we will move to dropping classes because that's the only way we're going to be able to be successful. So this is not going to be, hey, something happens in autumn, someone saw you with your mask and now suddenly you're out of school. That's not what this is going to be. But it is going to say, you're going to get a warning and say, hey, need you to do this. And then we're going to advance and move forward. If we have a situation where, let's just take it to another category where we have misrepresentation. So people have decided they would make their own vaccination card. Well, that becomes a different level of problem because now you're providing resources that are a misrepresentation of the truth. They are illegal. Now we have a situation where you will be dropped from classes, but there will also be a conduct case that'll be associated with that. In the same way that if you submitted a false transcript or you submitted a false medical record of another sort, we would actually, we would address it in the same kinds of ways. And so I want people to really understand this is going to be taken quite seriously. But what it doesn't mean is that, oh, I have my mask off. We've all had that experience of you get to the car, you realize you don't have your mask. Oh, crap. Let me see if I can get a mask. Everybody's had that experience. There's not going to be any mask police roaming around trying to grab up folks who find themselves in that situation. That's not what this is about. It wasn't that way last year, and we do not intend for it to be that way this year. Now, that being said, what we also know is that we also can't be completely loose and completely open, and everybody just gets to do whatever they want. We have to be responsible to one another, even as we sort of walk through this and navigate this. So we want people to be compliant when they're in courses, to wear their mask so that everybody can feel safe inside of that classroom. We certainly want to follow the protocols that proved to be safe to us last year inside of the residence halls. And look, the reality as we go forward is policies are going to change. We will get new orders from the Public Health Department. The American College Health Association will come out with new instructions. All of these things are going to happen. So that means our policies will likely change and shift, and we will adjust as those things happen. So I'm just going to ask our community to continue to be safe as it was last year, but there will be accountability built into the system. But again, the system is not designed for students not to be in school. It's actually designed for students to be here, to be in school, to be able to be healthy and to be able to be safe.
Yeah, and given what you just shared, Patrick, about the ever evolving situation as we adapt to different guidelines and so forth, if it hasn't been repeated enough for our students, please make sure you're regularly checking your messaging, your email. You will get regular updates from a variety of offices and the campus writ large about these changing policies. Parents and family members, please stress that to your student. I have a recent high school graduate, and that can be a big transition because they're not used to checking a university email account or logging into their university account. Hopefully they've all done that by now for our new students in particular, but please be checking that messaging. It's really important so that you are following the protocol and you don't experience any violation of our policies. Just if you could stay for a couple moments, Patrick, we have a couple more questions, housing related, but also activity related. And at this point, I'd like to invite back Eric Rollerson, our Executive Director of University Housing Services, and Dr. Sanja Daniels, our AVP for Campus Life, if she's still available. So there's just a couple of questions here about kind of rapid fire questions. So students living on campus accessing meal services, what will that look like? Will students, what will the dining experience look like, if you will, for students who are eating in our dining commons? Do they have options to take food out of the dining commons, bring it back on campus somewhere or to their room? Could you just comment on that for folks who haven't lived with us before?
So yeah, the dining commons is open. You'll be able to do some to-go items from the dining commons, but we also have a convenience store. It's called, Doctor, help me, Village Campus.
Village Market.
Thank you, Village Market. Thank you. And so we do have that has a variety of menus, and it's almost just like a convenience store. It even has sushi available in the convenience store. So it's going to be, it's kind of funny to say back to normal, but as far as dining is concerned, it's going to be somewhat back to normal. And again, all the other dining facilities around campus will be open and available as well for folks to pick up and bring back to their room or eat there as well.
And Greg, I just got their updated hours. So for moving weekend, so the 14th to the 17th, they're going to be open 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. And then they'll start their regular hours, which are 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. So it's a rather long day for serving our students and campus community Monday to Friday, and then 9 to 8 on the weekends.
Okay. That's for the dining commons, correct? Okay. So I
Our
think you're-
eateries will also be open in our student union as well, where students can use their dining dollars, go to Starbucks, get a cup of coffee, and hang out.
We actually have Starbucks here now in housing. So folks are going to really enjoy that.
I'll be there tomorrow. I didn't know that. That's great. Thank you. Just to be clear, you folks are not in charge of dining on campus, but it sometimes goes hand in hand with housing. So thank you for jumping in to answer those questions. Our Spartan Eats department and staff are actually in charge of dining services across campus, and perhaps we can put their contact in the chat if folks need to have specific questions about dining on campus or any dietary restrictions, things like that. Spartan Eats staff can answer those questions for you. One other question while you're both here. This is a popular question usually for students who are about to move into campus and starting to connect online or digitally with their would-be roommates. There's a question around roommate changes. What does that process look like for those who might be interested in switching locations, switching roommates, things like that? Could you comment on that?
Yeah, so because we're really packed in not a lot of space, we will have a week and a half of a student who have opportunity to make a request to change rooms or space. Either they could swap or they would go to an empty space. I think that's going to happen mid-September, late September, somewhere around in there. So don't quote me on that date. But more information will be out. But students will get an opportunity to make a room change request during that week-long period, week and a half long.
Okay. And I would say that's a pretty traditional process on most campuses, give folks an opportunity to actually get in the space, feel out the space, meet the roommates. Yes. 9 times out of 10, everything works out very well.
You get in your space, you get in your room, your roommate's there, you say, oh, I really like my roommate. So it normally changes once folks get here.
Okay, thank you for that, Eric. And Dr. Daniels, there's a couple comments here about what can students expect the first few days, after they move in? Are there activities planned? Are there events, things like that for students to engage in?
Sure. We're very excited to have our students back on campus. So move-in weekend, those first few days, much of that programming and engagement is done by the resident advisors. That's our student staff that's in the halls, as well as our Residence Hall Association, kind of like the student government of our residence halls. And so they'll be providing students with a list of activities that may be related to their floor, related to their building. Our large all-campus program is called Weeks of Welcome. It's about 5 weeks of just a wealth of activities, from spirit to cultural to sports to academic, social and cultural resources through a variety of our campuses, our offices across the campus. So the first kickoff is the first day of classes. It's called our Weeks of Welcome Kickoff. So hopefully many of our students will join us for that. There are various activities to meet our athletic teams, to go on tours throughout the campus, as well as many of just the resources, particularly for our new students to learn the campus, get a campus tour. Our first football game is on the 28th of August. So we encourage our students to not only support our football, but all of our fall athletic teams. So we're excited to have our students back. And so look for many of those activities in the housing quad area, on our Paseo, which is our large kind of street in the middle of the campus, or our Tower Lawn area. A fair for our clubs and orgs. We have over 400 clubs and organizations on campus. Fraternity and sorority life will have informational sessions as well. So there's a lot to get engaged with.
We should say our conference champion football team from last year. So we're excited for the upcoming season to see how they build on last year's success. Since you touched on it, Dr. Daniels, could you just comment about student organizations and clubs? There's questions around, are they active? Are they not? How have they been navigating the virtual space the last year?
Many of them, will be back and they will be active. We will also still encourage our student organizations to have some hybrid events and functions because some of our students will not be back on campus. So you will find a combination of types of events that are virtual, some in person, some that are hybrid. From their meetings to their trainings to their social activities. We want to make sure that we're trying to include as many students as possible. Please look for the Club and Org Fair. We've held that virtually as well as in person. And so we'll be doing that again this fall as well. And so our student involvement office, which is in our student union, will be open Monday through Thursday. So stop by at any time, 9 to 6 to meet our involvement team, learn more about all the organizations, whether academic, social, cultural, political, a wealth of opportunities to get involved.
And Greg, are you going to promote the very first annual convocation that's going to be happening and hosted by our own Vice President Patrick Day? That will be 5:30 on Monday. And I'm sure we have a link because it's going to be a YouTube video and the president is supposed to speak. Patrick Day is hosting. I don't know all of the schedule, but I thought I'd throw that out there as well.
Well done, sir.
Yes, new student convocation taking place on Monday from 5:30 to 6:30, and it will be held virtually. New students as our incoming class, as well as last year's incoming class, should receive an invitation to that event, that virtual event, and we look forward to seeing everyone there. So thank you for that, Eric. Thanks for the reminder. All right, we'll give you all a break here for a moment, and I'd like to thank you for those in-depth comments and information. I'd like to invite our provost back one more time for a couple more questions in the academic affairs realm. So Vin, welcome back. Just a couple of general questions here. If you could give some points of advice to our students about working with faculty, and what would you suggest in terms of how students engage with faculty? You alluded to some of this earlier, but as things evolve and change, obviously our students' experience might change. Things happen in their lives. What points of advice can you offer for working and communicating with faculty in the coming semester?
This is a really great question, and this is not a COVID related question. This really is about the experience of the classroom. And I've been a teacher for most of my life and a faculty member, and we hold office hours, and we hold them for a reason. And students, as I like to say to students, I'm sitting there just waiting for you to come, either virtually or in person, right? So reaching out and connecting and communicating with faculty is really important. Everyone here is adults, right? So it's about that kind of cadence of connection and engagement, and talking to a faculty member early, like you're confused about an assignment, or you're not really sure what you're trying to do in something, or you really want to talk through and kind of elevate the conversation on something. They're here to do that, right? That is part of their role. So that sort of communication is actually critical, and faculty are here to help and work with students. And they're excited to do it. I mean, we go into this profession to do that work. So really reaching out and connecting early, right? And as often as you need is important.
Thank you. Appreciate that advice. And again, for our parents and families, supporters on the call, I hope you heard that as well. So you can, be our partners in that and encourage your students to do that as well. It can be sometimes intimidating, obviously, starting, particularly for our new students, but as Vin said, the faculty are there for the students. That's why they're in this profession, and we do hope students interact with them in that way. Vin, we're getting close to the end of our time, so I just wanted to extend an offer for any closing comments you might have for our participants today.
We are really excited for the start of this year. It is going to be a challenging year, but what I have seen in this campus in the last 2 years is we have met those challenges and we have risen to them. The students have done that with outstanding work. The staff have done that, showing up every day virtually or in person, and the faculty have done that. And this is an incredible community and an exciting time. And we are not the #1 transformative university in the country for no reason. We are a place that can adapt and meet the needs. And there will be challenges this year, but we're prepared for them. And if we have to pivot, we know how and we will. So we're really excited for these students to join, for parents and family members and guardians to be part of the experience. And our staff, faculty, and all our leadership are just thrilled to be moving forward at San Jose State this year.
Thank you, Vin. Really appreciate it. I appreciate all your time today and the direct communication with our community. And I know that you and your team, as well as the cabinet administration, have been working very, very hard on all these topics for the last year and a half. So we are all excited for the upcoming semester. So thank you. I'd like to transition for some closing comments as well from our Vice President for Student Affairs, Patrick Day. I'd like to just extend an offer for any closing comments you might have.
Absolutely. First of all, let me say thank you to everybody for being here today. I know everybody has something else to do, and so we appreciate it. For those of you who are new to our community, we welcome you as Spartans, members of this community. We welcome you as part of a long-standing tradition, 100+ year tradition. As some of you heard me say before, unfortunately, but fortunately, this is actually not our first pandemic, and we moved through it 100 years ago, and we are moving through it now. But the only way we move through this is together as Spartans. And so please stay in communication. We appreciate your recommendations. We're certainly listening, and we're going to do all the things that we can to make sure that we keep our community safe. I want to say a special thank you to our team. Some of our team are students who may in fact be on this call, so I want to acknowledge them. But thank you, Greg, for hosting this, and thank you everybody for being a part of it. We really appreciate it. And by the way, again, we are going to communicate for those questions we didn't get to. And also, this is not going to be the last time we communicate. It's likely we'll be talking a lot throughout the semester, given the fact that, given what we're dealing with right now, there's not something we can sort of announce now and be sure that it'll be the same in perpetuity. So expect more and additional communication. Read your email. Parents, know that we're communicating with your students, and we will do our best to communicate with you. And can we make sure that we put if we can get a link to the Family Advisory Board, can we make sure that that gets in the chat too, so that parents have that resource? And I know you're going to talk about the parent portal, Greg, so I'll let you take it from here.
Okay, thank you, Patrick. Really appreciate that. And yes, just to echo those comments, thanks for everyone for your participation today, our students, parents, family members, as well as our panelists and the team on the back end answering all these questions for us and posting things in the chat. We really appreciate it. A couple of reminders as we close here. So again, you'll see on the screen the Health Advisory's website. This is your best source of information for real-time updates as we enter the fall semester. So please go to that website, bookmark it, and check it regularly. Also for our students, please, again, be sure to check your messaging regularly, as well as your SJSU email for frequent updates around all these topics that we've shared today. A couple concluding remarks and resources here. You can go to the next slide. It's been referenced a couple times, but for our parents and family members, we do have a parent and family portal that is just for you. It's to receive news and real-time updates from campus. Your students will be receiving that, of course, directly through their email. This serves a similar function for our parents and family members. We post a variety of information here on this portal. So you can go here. There's a link being shared in the chat now. It's on the new Student and Family Programs website. So we do encourage you to go in, create a free account, and start receiving news and information from us. This is also a great way for you to stay in touch and in tune with what opportunities students have available to them, so you can give that nudge for them to take advantage of all those opportunities. So I wanted to share that with you. And then lastly, Dr. Daniels and others referenced our Outstanding Weeks of Welcome program. So I wanted to point this out as well. That does begin right away, starting next week, and runs through September 22nd. The website has been posted in the chat, or will be posted here momentarily. A variety of events taking place every day, more than students could actually participate in. If they wanted to participate in every event, they actually couldn't. There's so many topics and events taking place. So we do encourage students, both new students and continuing students, to really take advantage of this outstanding program and all the activities taking place. All right. And with that, I will wrap up our session today. Again, thanks to everyone for your participation, your wonderful questions coming in through the Q&A, and do reach out to us should you have any questions over the coming days and weeks ahead. Thank you so much.